Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm just checking I'm actually recording my voice. How is everyone doing? I'm fine. So that's me. So what I thought I would do for you all today is something I get asked a lot about, and that's what I want my channel to be all about, answering your questions and helping you get the most out of your makeup. And today we're going to talk about eye primers, eyeshadow primers, eye bases, whatever you want to call them. And I'm going to go through some of my favorites with you. If you are a regular here on my channel, you know how much I love eyeshadow primer versus concealer. Now, some people are absolutely fine using their concealer. I mean, I'd rather not. But I just want to tell you all why I prefer an eye primer over concealer. Like I said, if you're a regular here on my channel, then you have probably heard this 1 million times or more. Just before we get into that today, if you don't know who I am, if this is your first time here, hi, thank you so much for being here. My name is Robert, I'm a professional makeup artist here on YouTube and also in real life, and it is my goal to help you become a pro yourself or just someone who's really good at makeup. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, please consider subscribing. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk eyeshadow primer versus concealer. I'm going to talk about my personal experience with the difference between the two, and then other people's experiences talking to me about their makeup and how we fixed it just by using an eyeshadow primer. So first of all, the difference between a concealer and an eyeshadow primer is that concealer is made for the skin, the face, you know, this area. So let's separate the face by saying that the eyes are one section and the rest of the face is the face, just for this video. Concealer is made for the face because, like foundation, it has ingredients in there that is going to help hydrate the skin, look smoother on the skin, and give more of a natural finish sitting on top of texture, things like that. A lot of things like foundations and concealers have ingredients in there that actually hydrate, but they need to be in there because it helps grip to the skin. For a lot of people, and I'm not saying everyone, a lot of people have drier lids and some people use concealer with their eyeshadow and they have no problem with it. But for a lot of people, our eyelids are one of the most oiliest parts on our face. And that's why sometimes our eyeshadow can be broken down and we start to get those lines of color on the lid. That is oil from our eyelids. Like if we were to use concealer or foundation on our nose and we're an oily person, the oil comes through and breaks that down. That's why we have to retouch or set with powder or set with a setting spray. So by using concealer on the eyelid, you're adding moisture to oil and you're asking for it to be broken down at some point. Again, not everyone. Some people can use concealer and have absolutely no problem. So that's when an eyeshadow primer comes in, or an eye base. They tend to have a waxier finish that creates a barrier between your skin and your eye makeup. Almost like a primer, but don't use your face primer on your eyes because they're different things. So you'll notice that most eyeshadow bases set quite waxy, quite dry, or sometimes even slippery. And we'll go through which ones are best for who. In my experience with makeup, I don't knock anything until I try it. So I have tried using concealer as an eyeshadow base. Let me just tell you something. If you are having trouble blending your eyeshadow and you use concealer as an eyeshadow base, buy yourself an eyeshadow primer and notice the difference in blending. With a concealer as an eyeshadow base, you get this kind of like, it's almost like the eyeshadow just moves around the eye. And that is kind of what you want it to do, but you want it to blend more. You want it to kind of start in one place and blend outwards. You want a gradual fade of color. Whereas with concealer, it can look kind of like it's smudging around. You can then put a powder on top and set your concealer with your powder, but it's the same thing. We set our nose, for example, our face with powder, but it still gets oily later on in the day, you know? So there's no real help there. With an eyeshadow primer, and I actually use eyeshadow primers on extremely oily areas of the skin, around the nose and the middle of the forehead. If, say, I have a client who is a bride and she's oily and she needs her makeup to last all day, I will use an eyeshadow primer because I know it's going to be waxy and it's not going to let any oil through. That's an extreme example. Even if you have trouble with things like your mascara smudging underneath your eyes or just your eyeliner kind of smudging underneath your eyes, consider using an eyeshadow base or an eyeshadow primer, not a concealer. Even if you're not wearing eyeshadow, you can get flesh color ones, you can get clear ones, because that's going to stop the oil from coming through again through your lids. Oil can break down that liner or break down that mascara. Use your lashes almost like a slide and then slide down here and start to break everything down, and that's where you can get those smudges under here. Oil breaks down makeup. We use oil to remove makeup, even the toughest kinds of makeup. So let's talk about eyeshadow primers Trust me, if you don't use an eyeshadow primer and you think your makeup's good and you think it's fine, that's amazing. But listen, if you want to take it to the next level and have incredible, incredible eye makeup, grab yourself an eyeshadow base. Let's talk about my favorites in no particular order. However, I will leave my absolute favorite right to the end, and we're going to have a look at some that are more drugstore and some that are high-end also, so you guys have a choice of what you want to use. So let's start with some drugstore items straight away, and let's talk about the e.l.f. putty primers, and they do the e.l.f. putty primers for the face, but these are obviously the ones for the eyes. Every product I show you will be linked down below. Affiliate links will be clearly marked. I don't think I have very many in this video, but yes. So I bought these originally because I wanted to stop using MAC and I wanted to stop using their paint pots. And the two shades that I use a lot on myself are Ochre and Painterly. Soft Ochre because it's yellow. I dropped it and now I can't be bothered to pick it up. Do you mind if I pretend it's here? The reason I use soft ochre because it's slightly more yellow, and on me, my eyelids can be really red. Yellow cancels out red, so I just use that almost like a base and to even out the tone on my lids, because I don't want to use concealer to do that, so an eyeshadow primer is the next best thing. Painterly is a little bit more pink, so I use that just whenever. They do a few more shades in these primers, so there's something there for everyone. They do also, however, do the white, which is pure white. So if you want to use a color and have it really stand out, you can use this on the lid and blend it out through the socket and blend it out with a different shadow, but you get a really strong, really strong pigment by using this. The one thing that I did really like about these primers, they can be used alone just to even out your coloring on the lid and kind of brighten up the lids a little bit. So that's cool. However, don't use too much of this product. Less is more with this one. If you build up too much, it's almost like sometimes your eyeshadow can interfere with a product and you get a bit of patchiness. So a slight wash of color on a blending brush, or just use your fingertip and tap along the what's it called? Eyelid. And yeah, you'll get a good base. These would be great for people who do have oilier eyelids with a tiny bit of texture. If you have drier eyelids and quite a bit of texture on the lid, then I would go for our next one. So this is from Free Concept Eyes. It's a Korean brand, and this is just the eye primer. What's great about this, if you have dry eyelids and texture on your lids, is that it's clear, so it's not like a product that's going to be tacky and stick to the lids too much, but it's also more like a very silky texture. Silky but sticky at the same time, so you get the good quality of the base, that stickiness and tackiness of the base, but it's not going to dry your lids out. It's easy to blend on top, and it literally does whatever an eyeshadow base does, and I really like this one. If anyone has dehydrated lids, or you're a little bit dry, say on the inside corners here, or you have quite kind of crepey eyelids, that's a really great one to go for. If you are that person, but you still want a bit of coverage, the next best thing would be the Revolution Prime and Lock. This is really good for dry lids. Don't use it if you're oily because it's slightly too fluid, like if you have oilier lids. However, this has a tiny bit of color, so you can get that more even color on the lid. It does have quite a big, large applicator. You really don't need that much. With eyeshadow primers, a tiny bit at a time is key. Sticking with Revolution, let's talk about their cut crease canvas, which are these guys here. They do a few different shades in these also. I chose the white for more dramatic looks, and one which is a little bit more my flesh tone. I personally don't use these as eye bases, but I know a lot of people do because they dry down very dry. To me, it's slightly too dry to have on your eyelid. But if you are extremely oily and nothing has really worked for you, then this is probably a great one to go for. I use this to make cut creases to put on top of eyeshadow, because I don't use concealer on top of eyeshadow because it's still adding concealer to the lid. My eye primers that I use are slightly too dry to be able to cut that shape and have that fluid kind of movement, if that makes sense. So these come with a really nice rounded tip. That looks really dirty, sorry. So you can get that perfect cut crease shape. But like I said, I've used it as a base before, and it was just slightly too dry for me, and I have oily lids. So if you're extremely oily and nothing's worked for you, that's probably a great one to go for. Let's go a little bit high end as well. Urban Decay's Priming Potion. These have been my absolute favorite for years and years. I carry all the shades in my professional kit. Well, I had to throw them away because lockdown. I personally like this one, Eden, because it's really dry and tacky and sticky on me. Their original priming potion, the one in the purple, are good for drier lids. They are also clear, so anyone of any skin tone can wear them. And they do have deeper options as well, which I think is incredible that they're inclusive to everybody. I would recommend this for makeup artists, or if you just really, really want a great base for your eyeshadow. Again, quite dry. So if you do have textured lids, or you do have crepier lids, or dryness or dehydration around the eye area, maybe stay away from that one. A great option for everybody, dry lids, oily lids, everything, is a Kaleidos Tone Activator Eye Primer. This is an incredible, incredible brand, and it's slowly become one of my absolute favorite brands. This eye primer is almost a tint of color, but it's not so much that it interferes with your eyeshadow or skin tone, if that makes sense. It dries drier than the previous clear ones I've shown you. It doesn't have that silky texture. It still has that sticky, tacky texture. So if you want clear but sticky, that's a good one to go for. So I thought I would save my absolute favorite till last because it's the best one. It's the one I recommend to everyone all the time whenever. Ooh. I've used so many different brands of eyeshadow, cream, powders, gel. No, that's not a thing. Every kind of eyeshadow from so many different brands, independent brands, drugstore brands, higher end brands. And this is the one primer that I know I can use with every single one. Sometimes I have to change up what primer I'm using depending on the texture for shadows and how I know that shadow is going to behave, if that makes sense. So I want to share with you the Sigma Eyeshadow Primer. These are absolutely incredible. They are a stick form, so they wind up. Sorry, it's messy. It's the one I use all the time. So they wind up just like this. So you can apply it just like a pencil. These are extremely sticky, not so much dry. One thing I would absolutely recommend with these is I always use an eye cream when I use this. I know eye creams aren't necessarily needed in the world of skincare, but I do find eye creams or a more fluid like moisturizer is a great thing to use before eye makeup, just to prep that skin before without over hydrating, if that makes sense, because you still want it to be quite dry up there. So these go on amazingly well on top of hydrated skin. They stick down, they neutralize the lid tone, and they come in loads of different colors as well. I don't believe this is all of them, but these are the ones that I have. Oh, they're not showing up very great on camera. So you can have one of these bases no matter what your skin tone is, no matter what kind of look you're going for, you can use one of these. I love them. I think it's the best eye primer I have used in such a long time. I would happily use them professionally. I would happily use them on myself. Every eyeshadow I have used works with them. And I've actually used it alongside eyeshadow palettes that I didn't really get on with first time around. And I'm now able to use those palettes confidently and in an effective way because the primer is effective as a primer. It grips to color. It makes color stand out extra, you know, which is what you want your primer to do ideally. But the main thing for me that it does is it sticks. It stays. Your eyeshadow stays exactly how you apply it. 5, 10, 24 hours later, don't sleep in your makeup. 24 hours later, it will be exactly the same. That's what I look for an eye primer. Not that you should wear it. It's like 48-hour deodorant. You're not going to wear it for 48 hours, but you would like it to last that long if you could. So that's what I absolutely love about that primer. My absolute favorite. There are, of course, other brands who I have tried. They're not in this video because they're not the best for me. So I hope you like those. I hope I gave you something to think about, something to consider buying if you want to. If you don't use an eyeshadow primer already, I would highly recommend trying one out and just seeing how you get on with it. Yeah, well, that's it. Like I said, I'll leave a little chart at the end of this. I'll put the primer and then what kind of eyelid it's good for, what kind of skin type it's good for, so you can have a look for yourself and decide what's best for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this if you want to. You don't have to, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks again, guys. Bye.